Patrick Hoops from the Carlton Footy Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Dane Zorko here from the Brisbane Lions.
Jason Johannesen from the Western Bulldogs.
Luke Parker here from the Sydney Swans.
It's Roy Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Max Orr, Melbourne Football Club.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club, and you're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Number 8 in the 50 most relevant. Two-time premiership player, two-time Norm Smith medalist. He's going to be one of the greats when we look back in time from a footballing perspective. I'm talking about Dustin Martin. To help me talk about him, I had to get one of our Tiger panel members to get on board. Hello, Fox. How are you, mate?
Good day, MJ. Is there anyone bigger than Dusty?
Well, I don't think there's many players that are bigger or better or can do what Dustin Martin does. He is an absolute sensational footballer, and the only reason people don't like him is outside of his haircut, and that's a fair enough reason, is purely because he's not in their team. He is a phenomenal footballer, and we have been gifted from a fantasy footy perspective a whole heap of good news when late of 2019, when Champion Data released the positions for all of the formats. We got good news because now we can choose Dustin Martin in our fantasy footy sides as a forward. Last year, not as strong a year as previous years, but still very good, and we'll get to that in just a moment. I know, Norm Smith and a premiership medal, it's a pretty good year, but the 28-year-old Tiger is DPP eligible this year, mid-forward, and last year his best AFL fantasy score came against the Adelaide Crows. It was a 140 in AFL Fantasy and Dream Team, while SuperCoach it was a 138 in not a bad game, that one for sure. He is averaged just missing the ton marker in SuperCoach. Look at that, SuperCoach in by 0.1, while in AFL Fantasy just over the 97 marker. In AFL Fantasy, he is going to set you back around about 720,000, just over the 700,000 marker in DT, while he's under $550,000. When we do look back at the season of Dustin Martin, Fox, look, it ended incredibly well for Dusty and in 21 other Tigers and for over 100,000 fans, that's for sure. But there were parts and pockets of the season that those that maybe started with Dustin Martin weren't thinking it was heading their way.
Yeah, the Tigers had a pretty tough year last year, especially covering injuries. They were quite depleted. Cochin missed rounds 4 to 10.
Yep.
He went to 19 and missed 19 to 22. We had Rewald missing most of the year, rounds 3 to 5 and 7 to 16. And Tom Lynch was very underdone early on as well.
Yeah,
so
it certainly was. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, it wasn't a full strength Tiger team.
No, pretty much up until sort of round 15 onwards, and even then it wasn't quite full strength. They really did time their run beautifully. Some may say they were aided by the fixture, and maybe that be the case, but you've still got to do what they did to come back from losing arguably one of the great key pillar defensive players of ever, let alone the modern era, in Alex Rance. Losing your key forward weapon in Jack Riewoldt and the skipper out for months of the season, let alone the other injuries they suffered. You know, full credit to them for being able to do that. But if you did start Dustin Martin, look, round one you would have been okay. A little underwhelmed maybe, but you would have been okay. That 81 in Dream Team and Fantasy, he was value, that's for sure, coaches thought at the start of the year, and that was because he was coming off a seasonal average for Dustin Martin, just off the back of a 92 in AFL Fantasy and Dream Team and a 103.8 in SuperCoach. That's because the year prior, he was right near that 119 in SuperCoach and a 113 in AFL Fantasy. That was his Brownlow year, and he could not have played any better. So coaches were thinking, entering into 2019, Dusty's got value. But with just 2 tons up until round 8, some might have been a little bit hesitant around it. However, as the year went on, the tons started to rain in, and especially from round 9 to round 15. If you timed it nicely with Dustin Martin, then my friends, you got on a good thing. Here's what he managed to deliver during those few weeks. 135, 109, 105, 102, 140, 128 in AFL Fantasy and Dream Team. In SuperCoach, 128, 92, 113, 97, 108 and a flat line ton. He had some great scores to the end of the year, but if you timed it just right, man, did you get some value from the middle third to the back third of the year.
Yeah, those figures are music to my ears, MJ.
As they should be too. And what I love about Dusty is he is the complete package. He is so damaging in and around the ball that when he's going to win the clearance, you just know he's going to be doing everything possible and not many can stop him. He averaged 11 contested possessions last year of his 25, 7 score involvements, just the 2 tackles, but again, he's winning the ball more than he's trying to defend it. 4 clearances and 6 inside 50s. And if he's not damaging enough in and around the contest, it's then when he's been given times where either by need or by design, he's isolated inside forward 50. You either put a tall on him and he exposes them for speed on the ground, or you match someone that can match him for speed on the ground and he just exposes them in body-for-body contest and overall with his aerial ability. Just such a good player.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about the 137? The 137, in the grand final.
In SuperCoach, yep.
Yeah, he hardly brought up a sweat.
Oh.
Pretty much. It wasn't like a 137 game, was it? It was, he just did what he had to do, and just piled those points on.
Yep, 4 goals, 22 touches. He pretty much beat GWS in his own.
Yeah, that's why I can't not start him in SuperCoach. Absolutely can't start him. I reckon he gets off to a good start, and I think he will. I think he might have got a little pressure from last year. It wasn't a bad year, but he may feel that he had a bad year. I know he'll be absolutely spewing that he didn't get AA at All-Australian. Danger got the half-forward flank, and I think that will gripe him, tremendously inside, and he'll be out to start, with fire.
Yeah,
and
no, absolutely.
You don't have him early, and he's playing on the G. Like that's his house.
Yeah, look, his historical average of scoring, while he does have that as the predominant ground that he plays at across the year, and that's not uncommon for a lot of larger Melbourne clubs. Collingwood are very, very similar in how many MCG games they get to Richmond, is he does score well in the big games. He does score well at the MCG. And when you do look at his season, you kind of look at it in these chunks of quiet at the start, explosive through the middle, and then kind of back to regular Dusty, where you're getting the odd 80, the odd low score through there, a couple of 60s towards the back end of the year, but you're getting those hundreds and the big hundreds. What's really important to qualify about the year, and you touched on it earlier, Fox, was the injuries that happened to Richmond. 2 big injuries happened. Firstly, Jack Riewoldt was pretty much out for the vast majority of the season. He got injured in round 2 early, injured again in round 6, and it wasn't until round 17 we saw him. The reason that matters is there was also a very underdone Tom Lynch. All of a sudden, they need to manufacture some goals and another marking target through the forward line. And that is one of the things that, yes, it's great to isolate him, but it was more forced than by design. There was that, and then Trent Cotchin goes down injured. All of a sudden, they need that wisdom, they need that experience, they need that big body through the midfield. And look, there are other injuries that happened to Richmond across the season, but that is one of the reasons why we saw some scoring differentiation across the year, where for those first 7 weeks of the year, he was needed to spend a lot more time forward. Then they changed structures a little bit. They rejigged things around. We've seen Richmond readjust to this so incredibly well over the past few years. And then those full big midfield runs through the middle of the year happens. But then the back end of the year, that's when we start to see that consistency. And man, when we talk about our forward lines this year, I think most fantasy coaches would agree, Lockie Whitfield, barring something drastic going wrong, he should be the top point scoring forward for the year. Should be. Then I find it hard to build a case that I could confidently say someone will outdo Dusty at number 2.
Yeah, I totally agree. Tom Lynch could.
Tom, don't start that, Fox. Don't start this turning into a Richmond thing. Look, he scores well at the MCG. Richmond have 9 of the first 12 games, I believe, at the MCG, and similar enough. Not exactly the same, because Dusty's shown that he can score anywhere, but similar enough to Basher Hooley, who we talked about earlier in the 50 most relevant. If you look at the splits of what he scored at the G as opposed to other grounds this year and historically over the past few seasons, he is a stronger performer at the MCG. He's one of the safest picks we're going to get through the forward lines. He's going to have one of the highest ownerships we're going to have. And I know, Fox, does that tempt you to take him on? Or is there too much risk associated should he fly out of the gate?
Oh, far too much risk for me. Because he's. I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he'll be unique. So,
no, not at all.
So everyone gets on him, and you're trying to chase points. Yeah, he goes big early. Like going back to that, yeah, nine out of the first 12 at the MCG, and they're good. They're good matches too. Like they got Carlton on the big stage. You know,
there's 4 points.
He's going to be keen to get out there that day. Collingwood at the MCG. Then he's got St Kilda, his old team. You want to do well against them. Then the Crows at the MCG. Eagles away. But then he's got the Anzac Day. That's the big game. We want to play well. And then they've got the another one at the MCG, the GWS Grand Final rematch. It's going to be up for that one. And he always plays well the next week at the Gabba against the Lions.
Yes, he certainly does.
Then he's got the Cats at the MCG. That'll be the one he wants to take danger on. Go big on that one. And then Essendon, he loves the G. Swans at the G, North at the G. It's similar to last year with the Richmond run home on the MCG.
Yeah, it's actually the reverse, isn't it? Where it was very heavy Richmond MCG on the run home. They get it this side of the year. And to suggest, well, maybe he doesn't start the year early no matter what. Yep, you could build some data about that when it comes to the 2019 season, but I think there were more caveat reasons because of it. Look at that 2017 data, and even if you're not happy with going back to a personal best year, look at 2018. In AFL Fantasy over the first 4 or 5 weeks, 110, 127, 111. Yep, there's a 60-odd in there too. While in SuperCoach, 139, 160, 93, 141, 91. So to suggest that he's a slow starter historically is false. That you can't use that anymore when it comes to Dustin Martin saying he's a slow starter, because 2018 stats do not back that up. 2019 stats really don't back that up. 2017. 2019, I think the caveats are around injuries to Richmond's structure, force some moves. But gosh, if you want to take him on, that's fine. I will always applaud someone being brave. You're going to need that Walters selection. You're going to need that Heaney selection. Whoever it is you're going after, you're going to need them to deliver big scores nice and quickly. But for me, you want him in your completed side. And a little bit more in contrast to Rory Laird, who we talked about a few days ago. I think he can hurt you a little bit more with ceiling. And he's shown that even in the past 12 months, let alone the past 36 months.
Yeah. In 2019, Dusty had sort of limited time on ground early too, so he probably was coming back from slight injury too. So you've got to, factor that in to why the scores might have been a little bit lower. One thing also probably want to bring up, Presti has gone on, and Richmond take on GWS twice, in 2020. So, but I reckon the ball's probably going to go more likely maybe to Prestia.
Well, we saw that, didn't we? We saw that infamous game early on in the season where De Boer went to Dusty and really did negate him well. But in the grand final, it was straight to Prestia, and Dusty was more than happy to play deep forward. So if he does get a tight tag, whether it be a De Boer or anybody else, he just goes deep forward. They push Lynch and Rewalt up a little bit higher up the ground, make him play deep inside the forward 30, really. And there's no midfielder that can go with him there. And then if he gets and if he gets a tall defender, he'll just burn him off at ground level. So is he taggable? Absolutely, he's taggable. But I just see Richmond making the change in the structure to make it, incredible impact. Yeah,
like you said, I believe he doesn't get the De Boer. Like Prestia's on leaps and bounds. He's the one that's going to get De Boer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. De Boer's a real great tagger. Ben Jacobs is, and there have been others that have got a hold of Dustin Martin as well. But look, as far as I'm concerned, you're going to want Dusty in your completed side, barring something happening on the injury front. And in contrast to others, he has the ceiling and has got the history of big scoring runs that he can take games and years away from you really quickly. Again, kudos to anyone that wants to take him on. I just think it's a little cute. I wouldn't be doing it. I'm not doing it, should I say.
Do yourself a favour and save the trade.
Yeah, well, you're going to want him anyway, so get it in early, that's for sure. Before we wrap up the episode, Fox, where do we go for him in a draft? Is a late first round too early, or is he rather someone you want to pick up on the turn in the second? Where are you looking to pick up Dustin Martin?
Well, earlier in a SuperCoach draft, but yeah, first round.
First round, no matter what format.
First round, yeah.
Wow.
Maybe maybe start of the second in DreamTeam, but you've got to go early in SuperCoach.
Yeah, look, he's gone. I agree. Inside probably the top 15 selections across all formats. I'm not opposed to a late first round pick if it means I'm able to pair him up with a real strong top tier midfielder on the turn, which you should be able to do. So, look, if you don't think if you've got pick 8, for example, and he's still available, but you don't think he'll make it through to you back on the turn, sure, go and get him. Absolutely no problem if you'll get a comparable midfielder than what you'd get on that first side of the selection. Totally okay with that, but he's going inside the top 15 in just about every draft I can see.
I'm likely to go, if I get the turn, I'm likely to go Dusty and Lynch.
Oh, you're going 2 Tiger forwards with your first 2 picks.
No, that's a joke.
Get your glasses off, mate, that's for sure.
It is late, MJ. I'm dark. There's the possum running along the fence.
Okay, you're not meant to tell people when we're recording it. You're just meant to let them, sort themselves. It would be someone's very early morning they're listening to this. Anyway, mate, appreciate your thoughts on Dustin Martin.
All right, thank you.
Well
and
done,
look forward to the next episode.
Yeah, mate, we're getting close now. Number 7 in the 50 most relevant drops tomorrow. If you want to find out who that is early, you can go and find out all the links to join our Patreon army, support the coaches panel, and get early content from the 50 most relevant and some extra exclusive stuff as well. All that is for you online at coachespanel.tv. The number 7 player in the 50 most relevant, man, it's getting tight, but who will it be? I'll tell you soon.